Where's the pasta?
Guess it's been a while since I've shown the loft up here. Haven't done any work to it other than put a mattress down and throw some lights up. I guess the main reason for that is that I want to chink before I do any of the finish work up here. So the plan is to do some built-ins all around the outside perimeter for storage and a little bit of extra insulation. And that's pretty well it. Just do that. Maybe a headboard along here with some storage in it so I can put some books in it, maybe a couple bookshelves even. And then a railing along there, and I need to build a new ladder. So I'm doing some improvements to it. Considering extending the floor all the way to the other end. Probably mainly going to be for, seasonal clothing, when summer is coming soon, so I have all the warm weather gear, boots and pants and hats and stuff, so it'd be nice to be able to store that up here in the loft. That's the thing about a small space, especially when you have a lot of outdoor gear, it's where do you put everything. So I do need to start incorporating some more storage spaces into the cabin. Got 2 downstairs, the 2 benches, storage underneath those. And lots of room up here to extend it. Anyway, that's it. So good night. I'll see you in the morning.
Not food. Okay. You want coffee, don't you?
Right, so here I spent half the day just framing in this window. And I do still need to cut little strips to fill in that gap here. Seems ironic maybe, or a little bit confusing that I would spend so much time on trim work, something that I could have just grabbed some 2x4s and trimmed this up probably in an hour. And instead I spent half a day on it. Part of the reason is that I really didn't want to use this dimensional lumber to begin with. I just don't find it aesthetically pleasing. I prefer to have rough, kind of natural timbers like this. And these are, not sure what these are. I think balsam fir that I cut down. I think this might be the top of the long balsam fir that I cut that I'm using for the stairs, the ladder going up to the loft. And that's another thing, that ladder that I made out of 2x4s for the construction phase, that's not a permanent ladder to the loft. That's going to be relegated back to construction projects. So I'll be making a little bit more rustic and nicer looking ladder. But I guess with all the projects that I have, sometimes I question whether I should spend so much time doing things like this, trying to just improve the appearance and the rustic feeling to the cabin. But to me, form is just as important as function. And the reason for that is that, we can surround ourselves with beautiful things, or we can surround ourselves with inorganic and hard surfaces and ugly materials, and just never feel like we have a real appreciation for that environment. And I know that's true. I have lived in an apartment briefly when I first started in the trade, when I was 23, I guess it was. And, it was a miserable experience for me. I just couldn't stand living in a city to begin with, but living in an apartment building where all the surfaces are hard and just no beauty. It's all just about function, packing people in. And that was kind of a eye-opener for me that I decided it's just not the way I wanted to live my life. I wanted to be in a natural setting, and I wanted to surround myself with nature and with beauty. So when I started building this cabin, back to what I said a little bit earlier about taming or organizing the chaos that is nature, I only want to do that to a certain point because I want to continue to have a bit of both. I want to have that wildness and that untamed wilderness and that chaotic nature, but I also want to have some form, or some function, and some organization. And that's what the cabin is, this linear structure, that shelter of the cabin that I talked about earlier is, those logs. It's kind of like a stockade. It gives us that sense of security. I guess it's more organization. When you think about, a free-form shelter made out of earth and materials that just blends totally in with nature, that's very, very cool, but it's not very common. And it may be a little bit too organic, a little bit too chaotic, a little bit too close to nature. This cabin and other shelters that are built out of very linear materials, it's kind of an organization of that nature. So I have these logs that start off as random trees throughout the forest in random patterns and growing different sizes and different locations and no pattern to them. I cut them down, brought them to the site, and I built them into an organized form. So created organization where there wasn't organization previously. But then the logs and all this structural lumber just become too linear for me. I just don't get that warm feeling, that ambiance, that zen-like feeling that I really like to have. I like to include in my life. I like to be surrounded by beauty. I like to be surrounded by nature. And bringing these logs in and hand hewing this green ash that I cut down. It's very rough, and I like it. I'm not going to clean it off. I'm not going to straighten out those edges. I want it to be freeform. I want it to be rough. And I want it to look like a natural material. I want to feel when I'm in this cabin that I'm still out in nature. The windows are not overly big. I can see out in every direction. I can see nature, but to be looking past a free form material like this out into the nature, I think is preferable. So that's why I'm doing this. Like I said, it doesn't seem maybe like the best use of my time to spend so much time doing something that's more about form than function. But to me, that's part of the reason I'm doing this. It's a long-term project. It's a project. It's a location and a cabin and a homestead that I hope to have for the rest of my life. So the more things that I can do to make it a beautiful place, a beautiful experience that I can be fully absorbed in. That's my goal here. So I'll start to maybe disassemble or add to things that are just too functional and not beautiful enough, and start to add to those things and make them more pleasing to the eye, to my soul. So I think that's it for this video. I'm going to pack up now and take Cali for a walk. I've been throwing the training dummy for her a lot outside, but when I'm inside all day like this working, she gets quite restless. So I'm going to pack up. It's about 2 o'clock now. I'll take her out for a walk and then spend some time with my wife before heading to bed and starting all over in the morning. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a great week. Take care.